How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here for GNTECH, and this is the Nova 2 Plus. It's quite a radical change in terms of design from the Nova Plus we reviewed last year. For the most part, the Nova 2 Plus is sized well. It's easy to grip with one hand and usability is fine too. Huawei's even thrown in a one-handed mode to help with the convenience. The back of the phone has this nice matte finish to it, but attracts a few too many fingerprints. But the fingerprint scanner on there is very fast and responsive for a budget smartphone. Now, I've got the black version here, but there are other color options if you're looking at customization that way. And for a mid-range device, I'm really happy with the build quality. Port cutouts are precise and buttons have a robust feel when pressed. I've dropped the phone maybe a few times throughout my testing and it survived with no visible damage, and I was very impressed by that. But more importantly, I think the front-facing screen protector is a nice touch to have. But more importantly, it's there because the phone has no Gorilla Glass protection on the front screen of the device. Speaking of the screen, you get a 5.5-inch standard Full HD or 1080p screen. Out of the box, I thought it required just a bit of tweaking to get the colors right. Viewing angles are just about okay, but over daily use, it shouldn't really bother you that much. Even outdoors, the panel gets really bright, so you can use it without straining your eyes that much, and the screen itself is great. Of course, the bezels do take away from the immersive experience, but I quite enjoyed watching content on the screen, whether it was just videos, browsing the web, or even looking at pictures. On the audio front though, it's not very surprising that you find only a mono bottom-firing speaker on the phone. It's loud enough to listen to sounds fine, even in busy areas, but you definitely lose out on clarity and quality. At least the headphone jack stays here so you can use your headphones when watching content. The default ones provided out of the box have a very Apple feel to them, but my ears couldn't quite get used to them. So let's get to the main highlight of the phone. Its camera. Starting up front, you'll find a 20 megapixel selfie sensor. It's very detailed and is capable of nice and natural looking pictures in both the day and even in the night using the software flash up front. It tends to overexpose some shots and blow out the background here and there, but it is still very good for what it does. Surprisingly, there's even a portrait mode option available for your front-facing camera, and while the blur you get is pretty convincing, more often than not it just blurs out my shoulders and other parts of my body that don't require the blur. So you can see how the software isn't optimized, especially because it's only one camera and not two. But over on the back, you do find a dual camera setup. It's a 12 and 8 megapixel camera setup, of course with the LED flash. The thing with the camera is you do get some really nice pictures when you have enough light and even during sunset. But what happens is as soon as you start taking pictures at night, noise starts to creep into pictures. With a bit of editing though, pictures can definitely be enhanced and can be made to look much better. Over on the back, you do get another portrait mode option, and this time it's much more refined because it works with both the cameras for producing some nice blurry backgrounds, but at the expense of oversaturated images. Because you can tweak the blur once the pictures have been taken, the feature is even more impressive. But to take a picture using the mode in the first place and for the subject to be in focus, it can take a few attempts. I think overall the camera tends to struggle a bit when focusing on subjects, even when taking normal pictures. As always though, Huawei's bundled in some great modes in the camera suite for users to take advantage of as well. But when it comes to video, it isn't very impressive. Full HD or 1080p quality it may be, but because there's no optical or electronic image stabilization, it is very hard to capture smooth looking video. But barring its focus on camera, how does the phone perform otherwise? The Nova 2 Plus packs a Kirin 659 octa-core processor clocked at 2.36 GHz and 4 GB of RAM. For me, the experience was very mid-range and rather a bit disappointing. Every now and then the phone stuttered when scrolling or when operating the camera. At times I found myself wanting to take a picture only for the camera to stop responding and force closing. Apps like Instagram or Snapchat too always hung the phone, and being a camera-centric phone, it was disappointing to see. I've received one software update throughout my usage, and I really do hope Huawei addresses all of these issues in future software updates to come. Another thing I did notice was the lack of 5 GHz Wi-Fi support on the phone, which means you won't get the fastest Wi-Fi speeds available and no NFC. I found the exclusion of NFC support to be kind of a surprise, especially when budget smartphones priced lower than the Nova 2 Plus still come with it, and the fact that UAE is now gearing towards a more NFC-based payment system. As far as software is concerned, the phone is running EMUI 5.1 on top of Android 7.0 Nougat, and for the most part, I actually liked it. I think Huawei addressed one of my biggest problems with EMUI, which was the fact that it didn't have an app drawer, and with that thing addressed, I think major problems from my side are solved. Of course, having theme support to customize your phone, the fact that the phone has an app twinning feature, which basically allows you to clone a certain app for you to run 2 accounts on it simultaneously, or the multi-window feature are all nice add-ons. And for the most part, when I gamed on the phone, 2D games ran about fine, but 3D games really stuttered, especially when you play things like Asphalt 8. For example. But I think over all of this, the battery life on the Nova 2 Plus is the major redeeming factor for this phone. Huawei's managed to pack a 3340 mAh cell onto this thin of a body, and I don't understand how they've done it. Keeping the brightness at around 50% with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth turned on, you can easily get around 8 hours of screen usage, and with data that drops to around 6.5 to 7 hours, which is still pretty great. With the USB-C port found on the phone, recharging it isn't a problem either. The phone supports fast charging, getting you close to 35% battery in half an hour, but you won't find yourself using it too much because for the most part I only plugged in the phone in the late evenings, which was great. And so there you have it. I think the Nova 2 Plus is priced slightly too steep right now, with the major selling points for the phone being its camera as well as the battery life, but the user experience hasn't quite lived up to my expectations at least. I think over time, if Huawei does push out software updates to optimize the user experience, the Nova 2 Plus can bring some really good value for money. But that's all for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure you check out our other videos if you haven't already. I'll see you in the very next one. Adios.